What is up, Packers fans? Welcome into Pack-A-Day Happy Hour. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. We are presented today by Luiges Frozen Pizza. Follow them on social media at Luiges Pizza. Of course, luigespizza.com. Cannot get enough Luiges Pizza. I don't have any victory pizzas left this year, which is a huge bummer, but you can bet I'm going to be having them for halftime of the games this week. Probably one Saturday, one Sunday. Might get some garlic dippers in there as well. Stock up your freezer. We've got a lot of playoffs left. We've got 4 games this week. We got 2 the following week. We've got a Super Bowl left to go. So lots of fun times to have some Luiges Pizza. And of course, it's never a bad time to have a Luiges Pizza either. So again, check them out on social media at Luiges Pizza. We'll be live, by the way, halftime of Bears Rams on Luigi's Twitter channel as well to talk a little of Rams and Bears for that NFC divisional round game. Sickens me to my stomach that when that game kicks off, the Bears will be one of only 5 teams left that could win the Super Bowl. It'll be Bears, Rams, and the winners of the 3 other games. So yeah, we've got a lot of work to do to make sure that the Bears don't get there. Hopefully the Rams can take care of business. Probably a little assist from Matt LaFleur this week, working with his good buddy, Sean McVay, to make sure Ben Johnson goes down. But I digress. Thank you all so much for being here. We've got a lot to get into. Obviously, no news yet on the Matt LaFleur front or on the coaching front. If something comes in, somebody please super chat me so I know and we can start talking about that. But as of right now, no news. And so we will progress as usual with getting to all of your incredible questions right here and right now. Let's start with Mirko, brand new Pack-A-Day Podcast YouTube member. Thanks so much, Mirko. Also, Patrick, Damon, who I believe became an All-Pro member as well. Thank you for that, Damon. And then Turley Time as well. Thank you guys so much for signing up. Appreciate that a ton. And thank you for your support of the channel. JRS, Demovsky spoke more passionately on his hatred for justice than any Packers player or coach has for a divisional rival. Nice to see some fire, I guess. I appreciated Rob's fired up nature about the Darren Rizzi stuff. I think what's important to note is that it's not like Justice made that story up, right? He didn't conjure that out of thin air. That's been a report that's been out there for some time that many people could have disputed over the course of time that never have taken the time apparently to dispute, or at least that I've seen. And so, Justice is referencing a report that's been out there by a verifiable news source, right? So Justice is doing nothing wrong in that regard. And to Justice's point, in response to Rob, on his article, as Justice tweeted out, make sure I have it right here. Justice said, because he basically said, well, if Tom Clements was still here, it would be different. And Justice says, if Tom Clements stayed, the Packers' experience would have doubled and they'd still be last. And Clements didn't stay and they internally promoted to fill the position. So, I don't know why Rob was so fired up about that, but he was, I guess. I like Rob a lot. He's one of my favorite people on the beat. He does an awesome job covering the team. But yeah, don't know what the situation was there. But if nothing else, we got clarification on the Rizzi situation that it was never about money and that Rizzi just didn't want to be here. So we can take all the information about Darren Rizzi and not getting paid enough and throw it out the window. And kudos to Rob for letting us know that. And it hasn't been a money issue for that specific instance, but the crux of Justice's work and article still stands, and they still would have been, the least experienced of the group. So it's been a long week on Packers Twitter. It's been a very long week on Packers Twitter for, I think, just about everybody. And so hopefully we can get through this week, and then things will be a little bit more fun in the near future. Dylan, thank you for the super chat. What's a Packers offseason without a will they, won't they storyline? How can you not be romantic about football? It's why the Packers and just covering football in general is so freaking amazing, is because there's always something going on. Outside of that period from about mid-June to late July, from the end of the last mini camp to the start of training camp, that about 6-week period, that's the true dead period in the NFL. Every other time there's something going on. We've got playoffs going on and coaching changes going on right now, defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, special teams coordinator changes, all of that stuff. And then in February, you've got the Super Bowl, and there's still more changes going on. Staff's being filled out, not to mention you're getting ready for free agency in March, because it hits right at the beginning of March. March free agency hits and everything is chaos and there's new players everywhere. And then, all of a sudden you get to, April and you're preparing for the draft. You get to the draft and beginning of May starts, and then you're breaking down the players that they did draft and how they're going to fit. You get to OTAs, mini camps, And then you have that 6 weeks off where there's not really much going on. NFL tries to fill it with their top 100 players, but for the most part, that's about a 6-week dead period. And then training camp starts and we start the whole thing over again. So it's a beautiful thing. And it's fun for, it's great for me to have things to talk about. And certainly we're not lacking for conversation topics and points to talk about right now. Scott, thank you for the super chat. Can we all just do some witchery and summon the ghost of Vince Lombardi to solve this coaching debacle? I'm sure ghost wages are reasonable. One thing I would say, Scott, is I don't think there's any debacle right now. This is just business. This is just a negotiation. And if I had to guess, I think Matt legitimately does want to stay in Green Bay. I don't think he probably wants to uproot his family and go somewhere else and anything like that. I think he wants to stay here with the best team of any coaching, opportunity out there. The Packers have the best, arguably the best team. I don't think there's much, maybe the Ravens, but that would be the only other one. And I would still take Green Bay's roster over Baltimore's. I think, in all honesty, if you get to the Packers side of things, I think they legitimately want Matt to be here as well. And so I think both sides are working in good faith, understanding that this is going to get done at some point in time. And I do ultimately think that they're both working towards this. And so there's probably not this deadline quite like it feels like. Now, maybe it's not. Maybe there's more pressure on both sides than what we know. And maybe I'm just wrong. And maybe there is a little bit more chaos inside the building. As I talked about today at length, it behooves both of these sides to get it done. Even if you're 100% sure that Matt's going to be back, right? You still want to get this done because if Jeff Hafley leaves, you want to be able to fill that defensive coordinator position right away and start bringing in interviews. If you want to make a change at offensive line coach, special teams coordinator, linebackers coach, anything else, you want to be able to make those moves as well. So there's a lot going on, and you want your head coach and GM and everything in place so that you can make those decisions and do what you need to do to fill your staff correctly. So I think it's still important that they get this done, but I have a feeling that this probably gets done sooner rather than later, but it certainly remains a very important topic. But as of right now, I wouldn't use the word debacle for what's going on. If we're on Wednesday, Thursday of next week, and we're in the same spot that we are right now, yeah, we're getting towards debacle territory. But right now, it's 1 week. Nothing's really changed. The only thing that's different is John Harbaugh's off the market. I don't think they probably were going to pay 5 years, $100 million and give him any staff that he wanted and a ton of power anyway. At least would be my guess. So I don't think they've lost out on anything yet. But again, a few days from now, week from now, it's a lot different connotation. Nathan, thank you so much for becoming a new member. And Ryan, who I think just became a new member as well. Thoughts on Alar out of PSU if you think Green Bay will take a quarterback? Was originally a top 5 projection until the ACL in September. Clifford PTSD, though. I have not watched Alar yet. I have not watched any draft prospects. That should start next week pretty aggressively. It's going to be a while before I get to Alar or Alaire, I think it is. But yeah, it'll be a hot second before I get to that level. And I tell you guys this every single year. I don't half-ass draft coverage. I'm not insinuating that anybody else does, but I take it very seriously. And so I would rather, if I get to 100 and 150 prospects, but I do it the right way, watching a lot of film, a lot of all 22, I would rather do that than to half-ass, 300 prospects where I know just a little bit about everybody. So it'll be a deep dive like I always do, and we'll go through it. We'll spend a lot more time on, day 2 type of guys, second and third rounders because of no first round pick, but it's going to still be a very important draft for Green Bay. No question about it. Invincible 1265 becoming a new YouTube member. Appreciate that, my friend. Brandon, I'm assuming Tomlin retires, but with the Steelers still having his rights, if he was to take a job, can you explain what that process looks like? What level of compensation are we talking about? Same thing that would happen with Matt LaFleur. Okay. So how this would work if Mike Tomlin or Matt LaFleur, if Green Bay and Matt LaFleur break talks down and they decide, hey, you can go find a coaching job elsewhere. Or if Mike Tomlin wants to find a coaching job elsewhere, in that situation, you let them go and you say, go find your job. It's very similar to when Aaron Rodgers was still under contract with Green Bay and they said, you can go find your next team and then we'll work out compensation with that team. And in this case, they would finalize a contract with that team. And then once that's all set, then it's up to those two teams to work out compensation from that point forward. So for LaFleur, if it would be Miami or if it would be Atlanta or if it would be, Tennessee, once that is finalized, then you would work on the compensation from there. It doesn't mean that the compensation works. And if Tennessee or whoever tries to lowball Green Bay, they can say, no, we're not doing that. Sorry, Matt, you're going to have to go find a different job elsewhere. Or, you get Tennessee to ramp up the offer. But in this case, it's not like a traditional sort of trade. It would be the same thing with Mike Tomlin, where he would go and find a job, and then the Steelers and whatever team he found a job with would work on compensation from there. All right. Justice Moscato. Unbelievable. What's good, Andy? I think we have been through defensive coordinator candidates. What about O-line coaches? Seeing what Stoutland has done for an organization, I need that. Callahan is probably one of the big ones out there from Tennessee. Now, as many have pointed out, and I would agree with, he did not have a good stint in Tennessee. They had some really good offensive linemen, some high draft picks, a really good free agent signing, or at least a high price free agent signing in Lloyd Cushenberry, amongst others. And that line did not work out under Callahan's tutelage. So I haven't looked elsewhere, to be honest, yet, Moscato. But yeah, it's something I'll take a look at if and when Luke Butkus does in fact move on or get relieved of his duties or whatever. But it's one of those things where in my position, you only have so much bandwidth to research stuff, right? So when we get to that point, if a defensive coordinator spot opens up, and we've looked at some of it already, but if an offensive line spot opens up, then we'll, kind of do some deep dives and look at it at that point in time. Kipperoni, happy Friday. Thank you and your team. Andy, go Pack Go. Kipperoni, appreciate you, my friend. Amy, I keep hearing all this chatter about the change in power structure. Is there a reason Matt would have a problem reporting to Goody? I feel like that may be an important piece or nothing. Really tough to say, Amy. Really tough to say how Matt would ultimately feel about that. It could be that Matt feels like he is now getting demoted, and it would feel that way because if the pyramid, right, is Ed Policy, and then right below Ed Policy is equally Goody, LaFleur, and Russ Ball, and then Matt has his staff, Goody has his staff, Russ Ball has his staff, etc. That's the sort of pyramid. Well, now all of a sudden, for Matt, right, if this gets to a point where you look at it and it's now Ed Policy and then Brian Gutekunst, and then he and Russ report into Brian. Now he is, not just 1 degree away from Ed Policy, he's 2 degrees away, right? So he could see that as like, hey, I'm getting demoted here. I'm getting less power within the organization. I don't like that. If I had to guess, there's never been a report of any issues between Goody and Matt. They get along well. It seems like they do kind of feed off of each other. It does seem like Goody will change some of the stuff that he is doing in the draft to accommodate what Matt wants for his team. It does seem like Matt at times will, take the players that Goody takes. Maybe it's not his first choice, and make sure they're integrated in the team and things like that. It seems like they have a really good working relationship. So it might be not much ado about nothing. It might be like Matt's like, yeah, don't really care if I report to Ed or Goot as long as I have autonomy over what I'm doing as a coach, and that's my thing, then it doesn't matter. And I think the interesting thing there too is like Matt will probably get a much bigger contract, or at least a bigger contract than Goot would be my guess. And so you also have that weird dynamic of I make more than my boss. And so who really has the power in that situation? But yeah, I think it's probably much ado about nothing, but it is sometimes a little bit tough to tell. I'm going to zoom this out. Got to get the top. There we go. That looks a little bit better. All right. Danny, favored in 17 out of 18 games and went 9-8-1. Matt has leverage. He does. Sorry, my friend. I hate to break it to you. Matt has leverage. He absolutely has leverage because he would be the most sought after coach on the market. And if Green Bay, like leverage is all about like, do you have the power to say, see you later? And Matt does. Matt can legitimately say, peace out. I can go get a better deal elsewhere. And if Green Bay wants his services, which all reports are that they do, then he has leverage because there are 8 other jobs open, 3 of which he has direct connections with. And he would be, I think, arguably the most sought after candidate on the market. I think he would get 5 years, 80 million on the open market. I really do. So yeah, you don't have to like it. I'm not trying to sell you a bill of goods or try to convince you that you should be thrilled about it or anything like that. I'm just saying it is what it is that he does have leverage in this situation. Now, this is what we've talked about a billion times over of you may feel different and the Packers may feel differently and say, yeah, you have leverage, but we're not going to pay you that much. And that's where this disconnect could ultimately be. This rift could ultimately be is Green Bay, Danny, might agree with you. Ed Policy might agree with you and say, yeah, you might have some leverage, but we don't have any interest in paying you 5 years, $80 million. guaranteed. You lost 5 in a row. You did go 9-8-1 when you were favored out of 17 games. You have been 3 games over 500 in your last 76 games. You've only won 1 playoff game in the last 5 years. Green Bay might be saying, and probably is saying, those exact same things to Matt's agent. Well, what do you mean we're going to pay you this much? And Matt's agent can go right back and say, that is fine. Let us go. Let us go. We'll go find that same number elsewhere. We're not worried about it. We don't care. We can do this in Miami. We can do this in Atlanta. We can do this. We can do this in Arizona. We can do this in some much warmer, nicer climates. We're cool with that. We can peace out anytime we want. So just let us go. You can get some draft compensation. You work with Jeff Hafley or Clint Kubiak or whoever you want. Let us go. And if Green Bay says, no, we don't want to do that. Guess what? Guess who has the leverage? Matt LaFleur. So, does Green Bay have some too to say like, hey, we can go with somebody else? Sure. But again, I don't think that's going to bother Matt. At least maybe it bothers Matt. Because again, maybe he wants to say it. I certainly don't think it bothers Matt's agent that much. And if you're Matt's agent, guess what? He's going to get more money elsewhere than he's going to get in Green Bay in all likelihood. So Matt's agent's probably saying, all right, that's fine. This is our number. This is our number. And Green Bay says no. And Matt said, this is my number. This is the number I want. Yes or no. If not, let me go. And so, yes, again, you don't have to like it, but Matt has leverage in this situation. Is there a world where Goody picks his own defensive specialty? No, 1,000,000,000% no. No chance of that whatsoever. I will say this, Abby, if there's ever anything like that, it should be the biggest red flag, the single biggest red flag. You want nothing like that. That would be a unmitigated nightmare and would be the worst. Like we're talking, worst versions of the Cleveland Browns and Detroit Lions levels of bad if you get to anything like that. So no, that would be, I would be screaming from the rooftops of like, this is a massive nightmare. So no, you don't want anything like that to happen, nor will it. Little off topic, but Domovsky throwing shade at Mosqueda. Is the lowballing of assistants real or no? Thanks for all the hard work, Andy. Go Pack, go. We talked about this at the onset, Thomas. Somebody else brought this up already, but I'm not sure what got Rob fired up again. Justice was just reporting from what I believe it was Tom Silverstein reported a long time ago, or just echoing what Tom Silverstein reported a long time ago. But to Justice's point, even if the Rizzi thing is false, even if Tom Clements would still be here, Green Bay would still have the most inexperienced, this is per Justice at least, I haven't researched it myself, would still have the least experienced, assistant coaching staff in the playoffs. And it probably would still be, we don't know the numbers, right? But it probably would still be one of the cheapest. At the end of the day, I don't really care if the coach is young, experienced, highly paid, poorly. Rich Bisaccia is a highly paid assistant, and that has not gone great. I'm assuming, I don't know, but I'm assuming that, Ryan Downard, the safeties coach, I'm assuming Ryan Downard is probably not the highest paid defensive backs coach, safeties coach, etc. in the NFL. By all accounts, at least by what I'm seeing on tape, his safeties are balling the hell out. Bullard, Evan Williams have both grown. X has been great in Green Bay. Anytime Catano Ladapo or Zane Anderson get in, they do well. Even freaking Jonathan Baldwin played well against Minnesota. He's by all accounts done a great job with that group. He's not the most experienced. He might have. I don't know where he's at now in his years of experience. He is. So he's been coaching since 2012. Shawnee High School defensive backs coach, Toledo grad assistant, Texas Tech grad assistant, Cleveland Browns assistant coach since 2014, director of football operations at Bowling Green. So he started in Green Bay 2018 as a defensive quality control coach, then an assistant defensive backs coach, safeties coach, and now defensive backs coach since 2023. So he's got some history, but again, it's not like this is like one of the most experienced, highest paid defensive backs coaches in the NFL, right? But he's doing a great job with it. So I don't necessarily care all that much if it's high paid, low paid, medium paid, extremely experienced, less experienced. Matt LaFleur, Andy Reid, John Gruden. We could go on and on. Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. These were all young up and coming coaches at one point in time, right? And they were really good at their jobs. They were never, they were all, had to come through the ranks and get those jobs at some point in time. So I'm not, it's not as huge of a concern for me, but as we talked about with Justice, it does feel like you're undercutting your philosophy a little bit, where if you are going to have the youngest team in the league 3 years over, you probably want some of the most experienced and best hands-on coaches, best teachers in the league, and going with guys that are promoting from offensive line coach to receiver coach or assistant offensive line coach to receiver coach or things like that. It probably isn't the most ideal situation sometimes. And I think there's some opportunity for growth and improvement there for Green Bay. Would Matt actually do better elsewhere? Tough to say. I mean, he has a better roster here, so I would say probably not. But you have to remember, and I talked about this too. We look through this from green and gold tinted glasses. Our expectation is Super Bowl every year. It's a tough scene. Go to Tennessee. If Matt this year goes 7-10, next year goes 8-9, and year 3 goes 9-8 and makes the playoffs and gets eliminated in round 1, and then the following year, gets 2 wins in the playoffs or something like that and shows progress, or even just this year goes 500-ish, next year wins 2 playoff games, and next year goes 9-8 but misses the playoffs. Like, he's seen as like a savior of the franchise there, because that's a team that doesn't get to the playoffs often, and some of these teams have go decades without sniffing the playoffs. So if you all of a sudden get a coach there that can raise that floor and make you competitive year over year, that might be an extremely successful scenario for that team. Does it mean he's getting as many wins as he did in Green Bay? Maybe not, but he might be seen in a lot better light there for doing exactly what he's doing in Green Bay. If he had the same record in Miami, in Tennessee, in Atlanta that he did in Green Bay, every one of those teams would be signing him to a massive extension right now, a massive extension, because that's not the norm for them. It's like that's the minimum expectation. The minimum expectation is a first round playoff exit. That's the bare minimum. And whether that's fair or not, it just is what it is. So, he might not have the same or as good of a record elsewhere, but he might be seen in a better light because he's with a franchise that's not used to that style of winning. Just depends. All right. Xavier, thank you for the question. Andy, all this coaching talk has me tired and ready for the Bucs playoff push. Oh, good luck with that. Good luck with that. Brewers opening. Brewers opening will be fun. Brewers opening will be fun no matter what. Bucs playoff push. Bucs are a nightmare right now. The Bucs and Doc Rivers owe a crap ton to Matt LaFleur for taking all the oxygen right now. Of all the talk about Matt, the fact that Doc Rivers has not been fired this week is batshit crazy insane. Just absolutely insane. I like you have to be trying to tank if you are ultimately, keeping Doc Rivers on. That's the only explanation. It's the only explanation. It's wild. Bill Brasky, good to see you, my friend. What a brilliant time to negotiate a contract for a coach after they lose in the playoffs. He's a great coach. They'll bring him back for sure. Bill, I think that's the most likely and expected outcome here. Andy, I like the way Ryan played this year. What would it cost to resign him? Appreciate you. I don't know if Spotrac has their valuations up yet. They're not always right anyway, but I'm just curious. So they have his valuation at 6.5 million per year. 6.6. So a 3-year, 20 million. I would sign up for that so damn fast. If you could get him 3 years, 20 million right now, I would be doing backflips. I think 3 years, 30. I think they're about 10 million off on their guesstimate there. I think 3 years, 30 is the right number for Ryan, and I would sign up for that as well. He's probably the number 1 free agent that I want back for Green Bay. It's not probably, he is. All right, let's get back to the top here. All these great questions. Appreciate the super chats. John says, this might be an irrelevant question by the time this chat starts, but Andy, squirt gun to your head. Would you take a second round pick this year for Matt and bring in a new regime, or stick with Matt? To me, the second round pick isn't moving the needle for me, meaning I'm just making the decision. Do I want Matt as coach or not? I'm not even letting the second round pick really enter the ether into my mind. If I think that Matt is the right coach for the job and I want him back. So first of all, we just got news that Packers defensive line coach DeMarcus Covington interviewed for the Jets defensive coordinator job as well, in addition to the the Cowboys defensive coordinator position. So Covington has 2 interviews now on his list. So Covington defensive line coach, obviously has previous defensive coordinator experience. Now 2 interviews out there for him. But yeah, I ultimately make the decision of, do I want Matt back or not? If yes, then I'm not worried about what I could get in return or anything like that. I'm working out the contract. We're getting that deal done. If I think that Matt's not the one for the job, then I'm letting him explore and I'm getting what I can in draft capital. So to me, it's just you figure out the first thing first. Do I want Matt back? Yes. Cool. If not, what draft pick can I get back in return? Hot take, Andy, what happens if Lukas Havrisik had kicked in the last game? Couldn't have been worse. I guess theoretically it could have, but in all likelihood, it couldn't have been worse. You never can see that coming. Havrisik was brutal in his last game. Like, I was kind of surprised they brought him back on a reserve futures deal, if I'm being honest. But just a nightmare game from Brandon McManus for sure. I know if this is short-sighted or not look at the big picture, but there's a small part of me that part of the reason I might want to keep Matt is so he can get another crack at Ben Johnson. I get it. I totally get that, John. That's not the reason you keep a coach, but it would be nice to see Matt get his revenge. That's for sure. It's hard to evaluate assistants, but do you think Connor Lewis should get more heat? He was special teams assistant in 2021 when they were awful and currently advises LaFleur in game management. If I had to guess, and this is, me, I only defend Matt LaFleur here. If I had to guess, I would say this is more on Matt than Connor Lewis. So Connor Lewis, by all accounts, is the one that provides Matt with the analytics for each decision and tells him what the numbers sort of say to do. That's my understanding of it. I could be wrong, but that's my understanding of it. So he's saying, hey, Matt, based on the analytics, you should go for 2. Hey, Matt, you should, call a timeout here. Hey, Matt, you should have somebody jump off sides, which he's done before on purpose. Hey, Matt, you should, let the clock run to the 2-minute warning. Hey, you should, et cetera, right? That based on the analytics and the math of it, here's what you should do. And then it's up to Matt to say, all right, I'm going to do that, or nope, I'm going to trust my gut and do my own thing. And so I don't think that Connor Lewis is actually the one to blame there. I don't know how much the assistant special teams coach is affected 2021. Who knows? But I believe that Connor Lewis is more focused on getting Matt the analytics of each situation. And then it's up to Matt to make up his mind. And so to me, that would be a bigger issue for Matt than it would be for Connor Lewis. Do you think an underrated aspect as to why the Packers lose games with the lead is because the offensive line and specifically run game issues? The offensive line is probably a 1A issue on this team. If you want to know why red zone offense is so hard, offensive line. If you want to know why some drives they look good and others they look completely incompetent, offensive line. If you want to know why they cannot close out games consistently, offensive line. I think Green Bay is in a weird situation where they can kind of get by with their offensive line, meaning they're an okay pass pro group that, Matt's really good at scheming guys open and keeping guys in. So a lot of 2-3-man routes where guys are chipping and helping that O-line, and you've got only 3 guys out and he still finds ways to make it work. And Jordan's been really good at attacking those sort of concepts as well. And so it covers for some of it. But if you want to know why this offense has not been able to put up those consistent 30-point games, and you're kind of like just scratching your head to why at some points it looks amazing and other points it just doesn't, and why they struggle against good physical teams up front, offensive line. We talked about this from week 3 from the Cleveland game. As I said, that what's going to hold this team back is the offensive line. And after they lost Micah and Devontae, I talked about it even more of saying, you can talk about winning any game in the playoffs that you want, and they can, and they should have won this game. Your Super Bowl equity is dead because you are going to lose on both sides of the line. You're going to lose on the offensive line. You're going to lose on the defensive line. You win in the trenches in the playoffs, and you can't win on either side. And that's exactly what happened in this game. Again, they kind of got by, especially in the first half, with what they were able to do offensively, and then it completely nuked them in the second half. And they weren't able to run out the clock. I think they had 0 yards rushing in the second half, despite having a massive lead going into it and a lead for the majority of the second half. Red zone offense, consistency, closing games, offensive line. And by the way, not having Zach Tom, a huge part of that, a massive part of that. And I thought Elton was playing like garbage for the most part. If they, I think, would have had the force, I don't know if they ever would have done it, but if they ever would have been able to get him back to guard and kept Sean Ryan or put Sean Ryan at center and maybe have Elton at right guard instead of, Anthony Belton or something like that, I think maybe they could have even been better, but it didn't work out that way. And yes, to answer your question, I do think the offensive line is a huge part of a lot of the issues offensively for Green Bay. Forget all the aspects of the Peyton trade from New Orleans to Denver. Did Denver take on Peyton's contract, or was New Orleans still paying it? And how would that also relate to trade contract for Matt LaFleur? Ben, I'd have to go back and look at the situation for Sean. I believe it was Sean had the opportunity to go negotiate with Denver. They figured out a deal, and then they, shipped the picks from Denver to New Orleans. But I'd have to go back and look at it a little bit in more detail. All right. Bill says, I laughed when we gave up Clark instead of Gary in the Parsons trade. Bill, it does take two to tango. If you remember, Jerry Jones was very adamant that what they were looking for in a Micah Parsons trade was a defensive tackle. They weren't looking for a defensive end. They were looking for a defensive tackle. And they, in fact, would not negotiate with teams that didn't have a good defensive tackle. It was a precursor to getting in the Micah Parsons conversations. So it was a non-starter. They could have offered Rashawn Gary for all we know, and they had no interest in it. Now, I still think Goody, holds some blame in this situation for not going out and getting a defensive tackle after you trade away Kenny Clark. Your hands are not tied behind your back and saying, well, we traded Kenny, so now we just have to live with Colby Wooden and Carl Brooks, and I know Devontae White as well, who got injured. You can still upgrade that room after you make the Micah trade. You're not limited to one trade per year. So I do think that Goody could have done a better job of solidifying that position after the fact. There has to be two to tango there too. It's tough to find a good defensive tackle right before the start of the season. I'm not saying that, but I do think there's maybe some things that Goody could have done to help that position a little bit more at that point in time. So Andy, agree Brewer season will be fun, but still depressed that baseball is so broken. Go Paco. Baseball is unequivocally broken. The fact that the Dodgers can sign those two, the two big players that they did this offseason is insane and absurd. The fact that two Dodgers players are going to make more than 10 or 11 of the major league teams' entire payroll combined is absurd. It's insane. It's a really stupid thing, and they've got to get it figured out. I would not be shocked at all. Rick Harris, I guess. Rick Harris. Packers Bears week 1. It would suck because you're not going to have Micah for that game, and Tucker's his first game back from ACL, even if he does play, and there's a lot of things at hand there that you have to get through. But it very well could be. Would not surprise me at all. I think everyone should be asking if it's better chance LaFleur is the next Andy Reid, or finding a new coach that can go over 700 winning percentage. I think those are fun narratives, but there's no two situations that are exactly alike, right? Every situation is unique and different. Green Bay's gone through a transition from a Hall of Fame quarterback to Jordan Love, who's obviously still playing at a very high level. There's been, a lot of changeover within the 7 years here for Matt. And I just don't think that. I think this is a team that still can win at a very high level. And it's going to be up to Matt, if he's back, to prove that over the next couple of years that he can win the big one. And if not, it's just going to, hang over his head and hang over the organization's head and Jordan's head and, Goody's head, because they need to go out and find a way to win a Super Bowl. They've been to a lot of playoff games and they haven't been able to get past, some of the tougher competition. So that's the challenge for Green Bay moving forward. No questions about it. Is Matt worth a first round pick and more? Also, can you trade a coach for a player? Not saying want to, just curious. I'd have to look at the coach player thing. I don't know for sure. I don't see why you couldn't, but I'd have to look back at that. But for sure you could get a pick. I have a feeling that if Matt does end up somewhere else and you get something in return, it would be like a second and a fourth sounds about right. Or like, let's say it is, say it's Miami, right? So Miami has the 11th pick. Green Bay has like pick 52, I think. I think you would be looking at potentially saying like, you get Matt and pick 52, or maybe it's your third round pick, right? And we get pick 11. So you're giving up a second or a third with Matt to get that pick 11. I think it could be something like that. And then I could see Goody saying, we'll take pick 11, we'll move it down to pick 25 or 28, and we'll pick up a second round pick in the process. And now we've got a first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, like we normally would. And it helps kind of mitigate some of the loss with the Micah Parsons situation. Again, I don't think that's where this is going to end up. We'll have to wait and see. But my gut still tells me they figure out a way to get this done. But if it doesn't, then you are looking at compensation. And then I think it's probably a little bit less than a first, early second, or early second value, or maybe even like a late first round value, but maybe not quite, something like a top 15 pick. Also worth noting, Atlanta does not have a first round pick this year. Maybe you get a first round pick next year from Atlanta. Maybe that's a possibility as well. But there's a lot that would have to go into that. Looking forward to a healthy Parsons and Kraft. Think they bring the FU attitude that was lacking at the end of the year. Yeah, not having Zach Tom, Devontae Wyatt, Micah Parsons, and Tucker Kraft was just brutal. And then losing Edgerrin Cooper midway through that game, amongst other injuries as well. It's it's just brutal. It's tough to have to win that way. And I'm with you, C-Twix. I think especially Kraft and Micah sort of set the tone for the offense and defense respectively. All right, just finished listening to Domovsky and Willie and Tauschen. It was very enlightening. I'm more hopeful now that a trade will happen. Seems like Matt LaFleur doesn't want to report to Goot, which I understand. I didn't hear that part of it. I'll have to go back and listen to the entirety of that show. What's up, Andy? Curious what you think is a winning offensive performance before the Bears game. I always heard 21-24 and you should win. Now all I hear is the offense didn't do enough to win. I think in modern NFL, well, let's see. So the average in 2025, the regular season was approximately 23 points per game per team. The overall scoring reaching around 46.38 points per game. So average is 23. I think the number to shoot for, and not to just use this number because it was mostly good for Green Bay this year. Outside wasn't the last one, wasn't where they scored 27 in the last one, but 27 is I think the good number to shoot for. Yeah, they did lose with 27 points in the last game, which is just another kick to the nuts. But I think 27 is a good number to shoot for. Under 27, you probably are wishing you had a little bit more. I think anything 24-ish is fine. It's average. It's okay. Anything under 24, I think you have a real chance to lose. Anything where you get to 27, I think your defense has to hold up their end of the bargain there. And anything in the 30s or more, I think is a really good day on offense. Classic slow Packers way is killing me this week. I keep waking up and thinking it had to be done by now. I said this earlier, but to me, we're in an okay area still with where this is at right now. There's no panic at this point in time. There's nothing that's really changed in the landscape of the NFL outside of Harbaugh being hired. I think you're still in a very good time frame. I think anything that happens between now and about 4 p.m. on Monday, end of day Monday, we'll just say, I think is a very fair time range. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think if it goes past that, especially if it gets into Thursday, Friday, next week, now it's a little bit more panic induced. Oh God, well, you got to get this shit done, right? So I think right now we're fine, Killer Kenny. I think there's probably a little bit too much panic from some in the fan base. It's a totally cool thing right now, but going into next week, it starts getting a little bit more. Yeah. Assuming Matt LaFleur's back, what should the Packers' top 3 goals for the offseason be? Corner, defensive tackle, offensive line. Obviously, if you're looking at overarching goals, it's, to bring, play the level of toughness, close out games, fix special teams. There's a lot of other things there. But to me, you've got to find a way to improve your play on the defensive line, on the corner room, and in the offensive line as well. I think the Packers come to the conclusion that promotion from within is best course for assistants. It doesn't seem to work out often. Is it error in evaluation? I'd probably have to be a little bit more privy to their process. I don't know if I almost think that they have it's not a draft and develop, but a sign and develop process. Take Sean Mannion, okay? Sean Mannion, they identified as a future, I think even potentially like offensive coordinator, but as a future really good quarterbacks coach. So they bring him in, they make him an assistant to Tom Clements last year. Maybe they knew Tom was going to retire, maybe they didn't, but they knew it was probably coming sooner rather than later. And so they bring him in as assistant to Tom. They mentor him. Tom is able to probably instill in Sean Mannion some of the things that have worked, what's not worked, etc. He gets a year to learn to under one of the best. They already identified him as a potential top quarterbacks coach at some point in time. And now Tom Clements retires, and you've got a natural progression to bring Sean Mannion up. And by all accounts, Sean Mannion did a tremendous job this year. This is where I think and where I kind of was talking about earlier, doing that, what I just mentioned, that's a really good thing. I love that. I love the bringing in of Sean Mannion as an assistant quarterbacks coach. And then when Clements retired after a year, to promote him and give him that opportunity to be QB coach. It worked great. I have no issue with that. So every scenario and situation is a little bit different. I think there's some that have not worked well, and there's probably a error in evaluation. But it also has worked with coaches that they've brought in at a high salary that haven't worked out either, like Rich Bisaccia. So again, it's not this one perfect through line of like, well, inexperience bad, experience good. You've got to make the right hire. You guys know, I worked in recruiting for a long time. You might not always have the highest paying job. There's going to be someone around town that's paying something better, or someone in your, industry that's paying better. That doesn't mean that you're able to hire somebody that sucks. You've got to find the next up and coming person, or you've got to find somebody, or you've got to recruit them and convince them to come, even though the money's not quite as good. Like that's a part of a job too. And so I don't think it's just money and experience, but sometimes that stuff can certainly help a lot too. Hafley does leave. I trust them to move forward with Covington or Ansley. I actually hope neither of those, Ben. I don't want an internal promotion. I really don't. I want somebody with more experience, or I just think somebody better. And now I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth because I do think Christian Parker would be a really good fit. It's a little bit more of an unknown, but I don't. All right, real talk. I don't think the Packers defense was that good this year. I think there were players that played well. I think Micah and Evan Williams and Edrin Cooper were awesome. Xavier McKinney played well. Bullard played well. I don't think the outside of the first couple games and a couple games here or there where they played well, I don't think they were consistent enough. I didn't see enough schemed up wins, meaning like, oh, yep, Hafley got a free rusher on that play. Oh, yep, they had everything covered the way that it did. I thought he did some real work, and so like even this game against Chicago, holding them to 9 points or whatever up until midway through the fourth, I thought was really good work. There's some things that were definitely well, holding Philly to 10 points, holding there's a variety of it. There's good moments, but I didn't see this defense through the majority of the year of like, holy cow, this is a top tier defense, no questions asked. It felt fine. I don't know what it ended up being, but even if like Micah was there, it felt like it was like the 12th best defense, which is fine. It's not bad, but I expected more. So to now lose Hafley and to, promote somebody from within, I personally don't have a huge appetite for that. Hey, this week we're talking Justice versus Rob when we should be talking Packers versus injured Sam Darnold. I know it's been a week. It's definitely been a week. Would you spend our second round pick on a kicker if we were guaranteed to make every kick from 16? A billion percent. No questions asked. I would probably trade a second for, Aubrey and Dallas right now. Hell, call them up. See if Jerry Jones wants to dump another really good player. But if you could guarantee me that, I'd probably give a first for that. If you would guarantee me every kick from 60 and closer is a make, hell yeah. I might give up 2 firsts. Like you're just automatic. Like, okay, so what you need to get to the opponent's 42-yard line, ish, right? Opponent at 43 technically, but also just say 42. So you get the ball at the 35 more often than not. That's like the average starting field position or right around there. So you've got to get 23 yards every drive. You need 2 first downs to get 3 points every single time. Yeah, hell yeah. So I'll gladly take that. And that's like a worst case scenario. The only reason the answer would be no, Lance, is because they'd probably still end up with like it blocked every single time. That's probably what would happen. With the limited draft picks and need in both trenches, I fully expect the Packers to make corner an afterthought in the draft like they have since the Eric Stokes selection. I will say I think they're going to be very, per usual, best player available. I do think the trenches will take precedence if possible. If they have offensive lineman or defensive lineman that's on the board at the same time that they have graded equally as a corner, I think they will and should go defensive line or offensive line in that scenario. But if a corner is the best player available, I think they would definitely consider taking them and have more competition in that room. If we did move off Matt, would Saleh and McDaniels be something you'd like? There's really 2, Saleh and McDaniels, or Flores and McDaniels. Those would be the 2, or Saleh and Stefanski and Flores and Stefanski. Those would be the 2 pairings that I would be more than happy with. Either version of Saleh or Flores as the head coach, with either version of Stefanski or McDaniel as the offensive coordinator. Those would be the 2 that I would be most interested in. Andy, the more I listen to you and other trusted Packers voices, the more I feel like the best thing for us is to trade Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur deserves a fresh start too, where it's not Super Bowl or bust each year. Yeah, I don't know. I go back and forth, if I'm being honest. I really don't have a strong take on it one way or the other. I could see it working both ways. I could see it being a disaster both ways, or just not working, maybe is the better way to put it. But either way, whatever they do, they need to make sure that it works, it pays off. They do go in a different direction. They need to get the best coach in here that can win right away. And if they stick with Matt, they've got to find a way to make sure that they can get over the hump and not have these same issues and errors kind of over and over again. All right, 2:30 is where I left off. And there's a couple more super chats that came in. John says, I agree that this year's issue is with the offensive line. Matt made it worse by his decisions and coaching. Is this a tell on his coaching ability? I disagree with the last part quite a bit. I think Matt did a tremendous job of overcoming the offensive line play with his decisions and coaching. Now, some of the second and 10 runs and some of the short yardage runs, sure, there's bones to pick. It's never going to be perfect. But I actually think if you look at this Bears game, go back and watch the tape, and the stuff that Matt had, geared up and was even sort of covering for his offensive line at times, it was pretty special. Some of the stuff that he was doing from a play calling standpoint. So I disagree with the last part again, with a couple hiccups here and there for sure. But I do think the offensive line again was one of the biggest issues. 3 words, Bill Callahan, Super Bowl. You're welcome. That's 5 words, Bill. It's 5 words. Again, he struggled in Tennessee. His offensive line did not perform. Guys like Cushenberry did not live up to expectations. Skoronski, last I checked, I haven't watched his tape in a while, but last I checked, did not live up to expectations. Latham did not live up to expectations. It just seemed to me like there was a lot of people that were underperforming in Tennessee too, but he has a very good pedigree as an offensive line coach. What would you say is the Packers' biggest need for positions? Could the Packers try to get a running back in the draft and develop? I really honestly don't care about any other position right now besides offensive line, defensive line, and corner. Specifically defensive tackle. Those are the 3. Everything else they can figure out. I'm not really concerned about. But defensive tackle, offensive line, and corner are the 3 that by far and away need the most massaging. Gary sounded in his last interview like he expects to stay with the team. How is his expectation so far off from people who cover the team? The man, I've talked about this of like, to me, it's a no-brainer. And I have no idea what the Packers are going to do. I have no idea. It seems like it's an obvious decision to move on from Rashawn. We have seen the Packers be loyal to players like this in the past and just have a totally different connotation of the player than what fans and media on the outside think. It seems like the most obvious decision in the world based on his contract to move off from Rashawn Gary. It should be a stunning decision if they don't move on from Rashawn Gary. And yet I'm a true coin flip as to whether or not they're going to do it or not. And a piece of me kind of believes they're going to keep him. And I think he, like you said, probably believes that he's going to be here too. We've just seen these sort of things before where we don't always see eye to eye. Sometimes the Packers get these things right. Sometimes the fans get these things right. But to me, it's a no-brainer. I think he should be gone. I have no idea what Green Bay is going to do. I really don't. It's a shame Duggan didn't work out at linebackers coach. Yeah, first year, I didn't think the linebackers play was brutal. I thought Edgerrin Cooper had a really good year. Quay was up and down. McDuffie I thought was fine. Justice is right where they really struggled in their drops. That was a big issue. It was a big issue in this game against Chicago as well. I don't know what they're being coached to do in some of those situations. If this team wants them playing the run a little bit more aggressively and then trying to back up, but they got beat over the top of the linebackers a ton this season. Yeah, I don't know. This is where I always say it's really, really difficult to judge to judge assistant coaches. I wish I had a better way of doing it. It's just really difficult. We need to stop losing home games, period. We just need to stop losing games, Braden. I would like to just win games. That'd be the ideal situation. Steno and Butkus gone, please. Butkus, I think, is fair. I've talked about it before. I don't exactly like. Here's how I evaluate assistant coaches. Okay, the best that I can. I have an idea going into the year of where my expectations are for players, and then you look at how many overachieved, how many met expectations, and how many underachieved. Rasheed Walker, underachieved. Aaron Banks, underachieved. Elton Jenkins, underachieved. Sean Ryan, underachieved at guard, overachieved at center. Zach Tom, I would say underachieved. This is not a dig at Zach Tom. It was due to his injuries. I don't have any doubt about that. But underachieved based on my expectations going into the season. That's not on the offensive line coach or on Zach. It just is what it is because of the injuries. Jordan Morgan, underachieved. I guess that's kind of the main ones. I'm missing somebody. I don't know who I'm missing. But either way, for them, Anthony Belton, probably closer to underachieved. Darian Kennard, maybe achieved, maybe underachieved. I would say probably underachieved, but there's nobody that's overachieving outside of maybe Sean Ryan at center on the offensive line. And nobody really meeting expectations. That's an indictment of Luke Butkus, in my opinion. I could be wrong. Maybe he's getting more out of them than anybody else would. But based on what my expectations were for those guys going into the year and how they performed, I think it was a massive underachievement by the offensive line. With Steno, all right, so Steno in all likelihood is game planning, is red zone, is third down, and does a lot of that sort of stuff. But it's also tough to tell because the passing game coordinator is going to do some of that stuff as well. Matt's going to do some of that stuff as well. And Steno could draw up the perfect play for Matt, and Matt might call something different. It's again, I'm not saying Steno is good or bad. I'm just saying I would love to tell you if I knew. I just don't know. I just don't know if he's really good at his job or really bad. And I challenge anybody to tell me why they think he's good or bad. It's just really tough to tell from the outside when he's not the one that's designing the offense or calling the plays as an offensive coordinator. I think the offense, had its ups and downs. And to me, offensive line was a huge part of that. That's the Butkus thing. I don't know. Do I think there's more exciting people out there that could potentially be offensive coordinator? Sure. I think so. But I don't know that Stefanski or McDaniel or anybody like that's coming to not call plays in Green Bay. It's an interesting dynamic. It's an interesting dynamic. I will not forget anytime soon that we could not punch the ball in behind this O-line where we had it on Chicago's goal line. It's not realistic, but all those dudes could walk respectively. Yeah, they struggled in short yardage situations all year. They just don't have people movers, and that makes it really difficult in the red zone. When we getting Ross Uglam's daily draft content, I have not talked to Ross yet. I know he's been super busy with stuff, so I usually let, kind of Ross. So just to give you a background, Ross has a blank check. So anytime Ross wants to create content, he has the ability to create content. So anytime he wants to come up with a video, I will post it, is basically what it's going to do. Sometimes I'll post it to everybody. Sometimes I'll post it to members, but he has a blank check to pretty much, create as much content as he wants. Same with Camille, who usually enjoys kind of doing the post-game reports, but she has pretty much a blank check too to create as much content for the channel as she wants. And I would post it when I get it. So yeah, it's just kind of in Ross's hands for when he wants to do that. But I've not had the chance to talk to Ross specifically about daily draft yet. Don't want to put this out there, but I'm a little scared of Tucker Kraft having a regression like Bob Tunyon after his injury. Walk me off the ledge. You could say, that it happened to Tunyon. You can also see what happened to Christian Watson this year and playing at the level that he did. Tucker Kraft is one of those dudes that's going to attack just like Micah, just like Christian. And I'm not saying Robert Tunyon didn't, but they're going to attack this a billion miles per hour and doing everything they can to get back on the field. I'm not super concerned about it at the moment, but you certainly don't want guys like Zach Tom coming back from a patella and, Micah Parsons and Tucker Kraft coming off of ACLs. If even one of those has a significant setback, that's a huge deal for next year. And you're playing with fire with three really important players on your team. So hopefully all of them can go great. They can all be back sooner rather than later, and they all look amazing, but it's going to be worth monitoring, especially earlier in the year. Wonder if Gary needs to remake his body. I've talked about that. It just doesn't seem like he has the same explosiveness as he did previously. And I don't think he's out of shape, by the way, Ian. I don't know if he made a decision of like, hey, I need to put on weight to set the edge better and be a better run defender, but now it has cost him as a pass rusher. I don't know what it went into that. But it does feel like he's not as explosive. And I think he's got to maybe find a way to sweet spot the right weight and explosiveness a little bit more because we just haven't seen that from him. Underachieved in the wide receiver room. this is a really difficult conversation. Okay. So Christian Watson, as soon as he got back, I thought overachieved through beyond my expectations for what I could have thought. Jaden Reed had the injury for a huge chunk of the season. I would say he might have been slightly under my expectations when healthy, but pretty damn near close to expectations and still a really good player when he was in there. Wicks is, again, one that battled injuries and just didn't get a ton of playing time and consistent snaps and things like that. I think for the most part, when he was in, he probably a little bit below my insane expectations for Dontavian Wicks, but has basically been what he's been in Green Bay so far. I think you could argue Matthew Golden underachieved for expectations going in. I don't think that's Matthew Golden's fault entirely. I think when given the opportunity, he played pretty damn well. And so I don't think that's necessarily on him. I actually think Dobbs underachieved a little bit for a good part of the season, but damn, did he turn it on at the end when it mattered most, especially in that playoff game. So kudos to him for that. Savion Williams was fine. Bo Melton was fine. Probably not much to talk about there. But yeah, overall, it was an interesting year for the wide receiver room. I'll just put it that way. Let's get our sleeper picks in. The stupid Bears game. Appreciate Sleeper for sponsoring today's show. We've got Devontae Adams, more than 53.5 receiving yards. He's going to carve through that Rams secondary, the Bears secondary. Puka Nacua, anytime touchdown, feels like an automatic almost every single week. Again, he's going to cruise through that Bears secondary. Luther Burden, more than 2.5 receptions. I do think Chicago's going to have to throw the ball in this one, and I do think Luther Burden's going to be involved in that to some real extent. So more than 2.5 receptions for him. Those are my picks. You can listen to them or you can go in a different direction. That is totally fine. Choose your own adventure. The best thing is you can get a 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Again, 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper for details. They are available in over 25 states nationwide. So make sure to check out Sleeper as soon as you get a chance. Makes playoff football really freaking fun. So check that out when you get a chance. All right. Got time for a few more questions, comments, concerns. Then I do need to get out of here. All right. I've seen a lot of Packers, Lions, Vikings fans rooting for the Bears. I've never understood the the Badgers are in the Big Ten, so I'm going to cheer for the Big Ten team, or the Packers are in the NFC North, so I'm going to cheer for the NFC North team. Never understood that. No, screw all of them. I don't want any of them to do good. Just want to say thank you for being my go-to Packers content for the year. Saw the crap people and replies were saying. Just want to say appreciate all the effort you do to your team. If you don't have haters, if you don't have people that dislike you, if you don't have people that are dissenting, you're probably not doing your job right in this thing. I get it. It's weird. It is what it is. One of the things that I've learned at a very young age that I've carried with me through my entire life, if somebody that's an a-hole doesn't like you, that's a compliment. It's good advice. Somebody that's an a-hole doesn't like you, that's a compliment. Take that with you. Andy Herman, 2026. Put it on a shirt. Let's see. Trying to get to some member chats here. And I need a cool handle like Moscato. Get going, Amy. Pick your game up. Why don't you think they ever gave Jordan Morgan a true chance at left tackle? I don't think that they ever thought it was going to get that bad for Rashid. And I would have kind of thought the same thing, in all honesty. It just really sucks. That dude in contract year who's played some good football in Green Bay played his worst football this season and specifically at the end of the year. I honestly think it's that. I think when you looked at it early on, you looked at it and said, all right, Zach Tom and Rashid Walker are going to be our tackles. Rashid's played good football and he's a contract year. He's probably going to be balling out. Zach Tom's going to be right tackle. We just spent big money on left guard. We're going to move Elton to center. So Elton's going to play there. And then, so where's our kind of open spot? It's right guard. So we'll put Jordan Morgan there. I think if Jordan Morgan would have spent all of his time at left tackle, I think if Belton would have spent all of his time at right guard, I think we would have ended up in a much better position. I think if they would have started Sean Ryan at center and put Jenkins at guard, I think we would have been at a much better position. Unfortunately, that's not the way they went. I wish they would have. Feel like it's a normal business structure. No other head coach is equal to the GM. Yeah, that's normal for most other teams, correct. We don't have much cap space to make any moves this year, but do you think it's wise to borrow from the future if there's a guy? Absolutely. I think they will borrow some from the future, and I think they will make at least one, like 15 million a year-ish signing, somewhere in that range, maybe a little bit less, but I think there'll be at least one addition to this team that makes us go, ooh, that's fun. I think there'll be one. Thoughts on Parsons' latest locker room press conference? Think he was directly calling out Gary? I think he was calling out multiple people. So for those who don't know, he was talking about, conditioning and heart and effort. I think he was calling out multiple people. I think he saw a lot of the stuff that we saw, quite frankly. There were players that balled the hell out. Okay. I'll say this for tomorrow, but check out tomorrow's episode. I've kind of a take on this, Nathan. I think the top players on this team were really good. I think there's a lot of soul searching that needs to go with the rest of this team. Are there any trade candidates you're eyeing for the new league year? Not quite there yet. Just kind of one step at a time of kind of looking at, what the coaching situation brings first. And then we'll kind of look at, Green Bay's own free agents and who they bring back. We'll look at, free agents that Green Bay could sign, potential trade candidates, things like that. We'll definitely go through that all this offseason in very great detail. Have more faith in the Brewers opening than the Bucks or the Badgers actually being above 500 for sure. No question about it. Don't know what that one was in regards to. Just looking forward to a healthy Kraft and Parsons. I think they bring the FU attitude we were lacking. I'm right there with you, C-Twix. Given the season ended and they are working on extending Matt, what would he have had done to not earn that? Yeah. I think if you had the same season, but everyone was healthy, I think he would have not. I think there would have, potentially been a move in a different direction there. I think if when this team was healthy, they looked worse, right? At the halftime of the Broncos game, things looked pretty freaking great. I think if things were already iffy at that point and then only got worse when you had the injuries, I think we'd be having a different conversation. It's not a total excuse with the injuries, but it played a major part. And I think for the most part, when they were healthy and they were, especially again, halftime of the Broncos game, things were trending well. And I think you can explain at least a little bit of some of the struggles at the end due to the really key injuries that Green Bay had. No wonder Giannis is starting to want out. He should want out, and the Bucks should want to trade him. It's just stupid what's going on right now. I would absolutely want Ryan over Quay. No question. I'm fine with Quay walking at anywhere near 10 per year. We finally have an average defense, and suddenly everyone wants our coordinators. Go figure. Why would Covington go to the Jets? Wouldn't Aaron Glenn be calling the defense? He'd be calling. You'd still want a. It's not like he has the choice of the Dallas job, Ben, right? If he's given the choice between the Dallas job and the Jets job, he'd want the Dallas job. I don't think there's any question about that. But, if he gets offered the Jets job and that's his only defensive coordinator opportunity, he would take the Jets job. Get Aaron Brewer. He's a good center. We have 4 D linemen next year on the roster. Do you think we are more likely to sign a guy who gets cut from another team and draft a defensive tackle on day 3, or do we draft 2 defensive tackles? I think, well, first of all, that's not totally true, unless I'm missing something, right? You've got Devontae Wyatt, you've got Colby Wooden, Carl Brooks, Warren Brinson, Nasir Stackhouse at minimum. So you do already have 5 defensive tackles, plus LVN can kick inside. I don't think that they actually need a ton. I think they need a starting caliber defensive tackle, more of a run stuffer. Put Devontae next to that guy. Colby Wooden becomes your number 3. And then you battle Brinson and Brooks for the 4. And then you battle whoever loses that and Stackhouse and anybody else for the 5. That's the way that I see it. I think you're a starter short, but I don't think they need an overhaul at defensive tackle. I just think they need one really good run stuffing defensive tackle. If they can add some to the pass rush as well, awesome. But that's what I'd be looking for right now. Actually enjoyed watching some baseball games this year compared to years past. It's fun. It just could be better if it was fair. Who says Jerry would sign off on Gary? Maybe the old man had a couple brain cells left. Yeah, again, he wanted a defensive tackle. He said that over and over again. Andy Herman, thanks for being here, my friend. Matt has some elite skills, obviously, but he's often piss poor on game day. He should be totally immersed in all in-game scenarios. Not a finisher. We need him to be John Wick, not Mr. Rogers. I don't even know what to do with that invincible, but okay. GB Gary got here now. Just seeing Justice's post comparing coach contracts makes a Matt LaFleur extension seem doubtful. No. What did Justice say? Why am I not seeing this? I don't know, I'll have to go and find it later, I guess. I don't know where. Suppose I could just search Justice instead of doing it that way. Unless he posted it on. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he posted it on Acme Packing Company. I don't know. Not sure what you're seeing, GB Gary. Unless you're talking about the assistant coach contracts, but yeah, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at that a little bit more. Don't want an internal promotion either for DC. Morris would be nice if Halfley leaves. I think so too. It would make a logical fit. Did X play well? I know part of it's team not throwing his way, but he fell consistently late to the ball and dropping balls thrown his way. I and PFF both had him graded very high this year. We were both had him in the top 5 on defense and good grades on him. He was obviously a second team All-Pro. I think he played good football. I don't think he played as well as he did last year. That to me is clear. And it's not just the interceptions. I don't think he played quite as well, but I still think he played really, really good football. I did not see McManus making 64-yarders pregame, but go figure. Andy, why don't I have a Matt LaFleur signing yet? What's happening? Yeah, we talked about this today. Nothing to be concerned about yet. Let this play out. We're still in an okay time period. If it gets into, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, then we can start having a little bit more panic. Does pre or post June 1st cuts really matter? When can we expect cuts like Elton and Gary to happen? Yeah, it can matter depending on where your financials are at. If you are a healthy salary cap team, it doesn't matter. If you are a team that's extremely tight against the cap and have limited maneuverability and things like that, then yes, it can matter. Yes, it can matter. But ultimately, it's the same amount of money that you're spending, kind of no matter what. You can manipulate it as to whether or not you want it to hit this year or next year. There's a lot of different things that you can do. So a lot of times it doesn't matter, but if you're a tight against the cap team, it can matter. Amy, what's your 40 time, my friend? Need to see that 40 time. Go Pack Go. And I don't think you meant a G there, Aaron. I think you meant a letter very close to the G on the keyboard. In fact, one to the left. Go Bills, beat the Broncos. I remember Super Bowl 32. All right, fair enough. Tom has a patella, or I thought it was patella. Maybe it is a PCL. Partially torn patella tendon in his knee. I think is that the same as a PCL? I don't know, but it is a patella. I don't know body parts. So that Reed and Wicks had the most drops. That was last year. Dobbs had the most drops this year. Have you had time to look at any free agents available going into the offseason? What are the Packers' biggest needs? We'll get there, Southpaw, in due time, I promise. Any LaFleur contract whispers? No, nothing new. Nothing too new. My personal trainer used to play for the Lions and is rooting for the Bears because of Ben Johnson having been the Lions coach. I told him that's stupid and surprised me coming from a player. Amy, tell him, you're right, he's wrong. Hope the Rams can operate the same in 10 degrees. Yeah, we'll see. We will see. How do you feel about a Austin Reeves package for Giannis? Nah. I want young picks and things like that. All right, I think we got to our members. I think there's a couple more super chats in here. Actually, I think it was just no, there we go. Jacktown Jody, thank you so much for the super chat. Oh no, we did do the who underachieved. All right, we did that one. Like to see Sheldon Rankins if Houston lets him go in place of Gary and Jim Leonard at defensive coordinator. Leonard would be fun. He turned Matt down once, so I don't know if Matt would hold that against him, but Leonard would certainly be a good choice as well. Yeah, we'll get there. I don't mean to poo-poo on your question, Southpaw, and I do really appreciate the super chat, but I'm not super focused on free agency quite yet, and we're about a little less than 2 months away, but we'll get there, I promise. Right now, I'm still like, for those of you who maybe are new to following me, first couple weeks after the season is a lot of kind of recap and going over what's happened and some things like that, what's broken, what needs fixing, and kind of a post-mortem, so to speak. Obviously, coaching changes and things like that are going to take up a lot of oxygen. If Matt goes, that's going to take all the oxygen, and we've talked about that a lot this week. If there is a new head coach, that's going to take a ton, and coaching candidates and things like that. If it's new defensive coordinator, we're going to spend a lot of time on that. Special teams coordinator, position coaches. Those will be like the next couple weeks, would be my guess. February will be a lot of looking at free agents, who Green Bay should keep, who they should cut, who they should trade, who they should sign, those sort of things. A ton of February will be dedicated to that, and then March will be early March again, getting ready for free agency. And then once free agency hits, who's off the market, who did they sign, what Packers got signed away, what is the team looking like. In April, we get ready, end of March and all of April, we get ready for the draft. Then draft, and then who they picked in the draft, and doing deep dives and all the players that they selected. Then it's mini camps and it's OTAs. Then we do a lot of fun, like kind of looks ahead and looks back in that, kind of 6-week period. And then it's training camp and we start all over again. So that's what you can look forward to this offseason. New background. A lot of stuff is happening. Order is in. I've got some stuff here already. Some stuff is being built. I'll just keep it at that. If I had to guess, my hope is done pre-free agency. So, sometime end of February, early March is when it's done. And I would say for sure by the draft, we will have new backdrop, like absolute latest. But it could be February. I'm hoping by free agency. Worst case would be by end of draft or by draft time. Is there a rule against high-paid players redoing their contracts to take less money, giving more space on the cap for adding more elites for a Super Bowl run? Kipperoni, there's a video I reposted on Twitter this week. It's called, you can search it on Pack-A-Day, search Pack-A-Day Offseason 101, and you'll get a lot of information on how contracts work and things like that. It just depends on if they have base salary or signing bonus money. If they have a $20 million in base salary, then yes, you can restructure that. And there's very specific ways you can do that. But highly, for any of those who are questioning like off-season terminology, how free agency works, how void years work, how you can kick money out to future years, any of that, I highly recommend. Let me just see if I can post it really quick here. It's from a few years ago. All of it's still the same. It's called Off-Season and Salary Cap 101. And here's the link for you guys. There you go. Is there a scenario that Al Harris comes home? It's so heartbreaking seeing him elsewhere. I don't think so, because the rumor has been that he does not want to be a defensive coordinator, that he just wants to stay as a defensive backs coach, and he's got that job already. So I do not think he will be coming home, would be my guess, unless something happens with him in Chicago, which it sucks that he is a Chicago Bear for sure. Kipperoni, you're more than welcome. I think I got to everything. I know little to nothing about the human anatomy. So it's not a PCL. It is a patella. Okay. PCL is posterior cruciate ligament differing from the patella tear. There we go. There's all you need to know. See, this is why I am a podcaster and not a doctor. I always thought ACL stood for a crucial ligament. Just kidding. I didn't really think that. All right. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for all the questions. Sorry I didn't get to a little bit more, but I do have to pick up the kids from school and get some of that stuff done. And I'm still finishing up grading this damn game. So grades will be out tomorrow. I do promise you that. I've only got probably about 30 plays left to grade. It sounds like a lot. It's not that bad, but it's the second half of the offense for the Packers of what I have left to grade, basically. So wish me luck. Wish me luck. It has been a painstaking process to go through those, and it's not been fun. Probably my least enjoyable grading of tape ever, if I'm being honest. I will see you guys all very, very soon. Grades tomorrow. Sunday, I have a topic listed and I don't remember. Oh, we'll probably do like a season review, a full year in review of all the grades, highest grades, lowest grades for the year, average per play, worst per play, who trended up, who trended down, who made the most improvement year over year, who had the biggest decline year over year. We're going to do a super deep dive into all of the grades, what they meant, and everything like that. So should be fun for Sunday as well. Cal coming in late. Andy, I think it'd be awesome if from now on we call Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson, thank you. I just want to see him lose every single game against the Packers from here until the end of time. That's all I want. I don't care what we call him. You can call him anything you want. Appreciate you guys. I'll see you all very, very soon. Until next time. And as always, go Pack Go.